All right, guys, let me know in the comment section right now, who do you think my favorite nation was, my favorite tribe in this series? Do you think it was the Airbenders, the Water Tribe, the Earthbenders, or the Fire Nation? Of course, I'm going to tell you at the end of this series review, but right now, going in, who do you think was my favorite? And let me know, going in, who is your favorite nation? Fire, earth, water, air. Let me know, please, in the comment section. Let's talk about it. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and this is just my opinion. Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just My Opinion for my Avatar, The Last Airbender Netflix series review. And if this is your first time finding me and you happen to like the video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this right here. We're talking Avatar, The Last Airbender, and as you can tell by my enthusiasm, I was really looking forward to this show, especially when the trailer first dropped. I mean, when the poster first dropped, I was amazed, and then they started dropping all these stills and things of that nature. I got even more excited, and then like everybody else, I was just over the moon, over the roof, excited about this feature. And guys, I never even watched the show, the original Nickelodeon show. It always piqued my interest, but I never took the time to sit down and watch it from episode to episode. Now, I did see a number of clips that were posted online, some fight scenes here and there, and I understood the gist of the show and knew what it was about, but I just never really watched a full episode or a full season, so I know I was missing out. Now, of course, we had the 2010 version with M. Night Shyamalan, which was absolutely horrible. I mean, one of the worst movies ever made, and I still think he's a good director. He's still, if you look at his whole filmography, he's done more good than bad, but yeah, we had that, and 14 years later, we have this Netflix series, like I said, I was really looking forward to. Now, this is being created by Mr. Albert Kim. There's no picture of him right now on IMDb, but if we scroll down and just look at some of the last things he produced: Pantheon, Sleepy Hollow, Nikita, and ESPN Hollywood TV series. Got some writing credits as well. And so if you are a fan of his work, please let me know down in the comment section below. Now, like I said, guys, I never really watched the original series on Nickelodeon, the cartoon and animation, so I don't know how true this live action adaptation is to the original. So I don't know what they got right. I don't know what they got wrong. I will let the diehards let me know in the comment section. However, I was a bit nervous, a bit skeptical, because I did hear that the original creators of the show, by the name of Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, were originally hired as executive producers and showrunners on the show, but they felt like Netflix didn't stay true to their word and adapting this to give a proper representation, so they left the project. And that did give me some pause. I was like, oh man, what's going on now? Okay, I don't like this. I mean, we got such a great show and the creators are coming on, but then they walking. I hope y'all just don't water this down and make it all whack and that nobody wants to see it and just another bad adaptation like M. Night Shyamalan, you know, part 2 or something. We don't need that. And I also saw some other creators that was a bit worried about this as well when they saw all the promotional marketing material, comparing notes here and there, just saying, hey, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. But I wanted to go in with an open mind and be honest and true and genuine and all that good stuff. And I love martial arts. If you are a fan of my channel, if you subscribe, you know that. So this really did pique my interest. And so before I get into all the nitty gritty, before I talk about all my likes and dislikes, let me tell you exactly what this Netflix series is all about. Set in an Asiatic war-torn world where certain people can bend one of the 4 classical elements, water, earth, fire, or air, Aang is the Avatar, the only one capable of bending all the elements, and is destined to bring peace to the world from the Fire Nation. With his companions Katara and Sokka, Aang sets out to master the elements while being pursued by the exiled Fire Nation Prince Zuko, who seeks to regain his honor by capturing the Avatar. Now, if you did not know, this is an 8-episode series, and the episodes are quite lengthy. They range from about 50 to 55 minutes. So if you was worried about it being 20 to 25 minutes, you can put those worries aside. And I will go ahead and get this out of the way, guys. This is far better This is far superior than the 2010 M. Night Shyamalan Avatar film that was horrible. I don't think anything can be created now in the present time, in the future, that could be worse than that. This is better than that by far, so you don't have to worry about that either, which is a good thing. Now, with me having medium to high expectations, I still did not know what to expect going in, but I will say within the first episode, the intro to this show was very, very strong. They really did a great job of setting the tone and letting you know what you're in store for the next few episodes, with it being 8. What I really did love at the beginning that got me hooked is they are really selling the weight when all of these characters are using their bending powers to manipulate all of the 4 elements. These characters aren't just holding out their hand, shooting fireballs or air missiles or water attacks like pew, 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 with infinite amounts of energy. That would get weak, boring, and nobody wants to see anything like that. They're really selling the weight. You can tell that these characters that are bending have been training for a very, very long time, and they're selling it with their body language, especially coming from one of the earthbenders early on. He's like, oh, punching the ground, doing all these moves and all of this right here with his hands, gestures, and his body. I was watching this with the friend, and within the first 60 seconds, I looked over at him. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm drawn in. I am really loving this right here. These characters are really, really powerful, and they're just not expendable. Like, everybody on the show does not know how to bend power or elements or anything like that. It's just a number of select people. Some tribes have a whole bunch of people. Some may only have 1, 2, or 3. And I like the mixture right there. It really does add on to the story as we're getting to know everyone and how things are working on through each episode in the series. Also, this series is very, very easy to follow. If you've never heard of Avatar before, and like myself, if you've never seen any of the previous episodes, if you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen the cartoon, I haven't seen the first movie by M. Night Shyamalan, which you should stay away from, I don't know if I'm going to understand what's going on. No, they don't just spoon feed it to you like you're a little toddler, but it is really easy to follow. And so you can put those words aside. If you just want to go in fresh, not knowing anything, you'll be able to follow along just fine. Now, as each episode progresses, it is quite interesting. And I was saying to myself at moments, like, I wish they would have spent a little more time in this area. But by the time we get to the last episode, the 8th episode, and everything is wrapped up, I did say to myself, I like how this concluded. I really don't feel like they rushed through anything. Now, granted, there was some times where I was saying, wait a minute, there's only 2 episodes left, 4 episodes left, 3 episodes left. This character hasn't done this, this, and that, and they still need to fulfill their destiny. That just goes to show that there is so much more room for them to come back with multiple seasons, not just one. Off the top of my head, I can say maybe 4 or 5. I don't know how many are in the original show, the original animation cartoon, but I will say right now, with the little knowledge that I have, is making probably squeeze about 4 or 5 seasons out of this, and that makes me feel good as a new fan of this material. And don't get it twisted, even though I'm saying that, this one still had a great conclusion, wrapping everything up that they started off at the very beginning. Now, one of the main things that I wanted to see in this show is some great martial arts skills in display, and this show does have it majority of the time, and I'll come back and talk about that a little bit later. Not only with all of the bending techniques of all of the 4 elements, but also some of the hand-to-hand combat as well, which I really did like. This is not a spoiler, but for the most part, the bending techniques are used when the enemies are far apart from each other, but when they get close like this, it's more hand-to-hand, feet-to-feet type action, and I love that. That's my favorite. In all martial arts, if you're having characters fight with weapons or hand-to-hand, I prefer hand-to-hand. It is a mixture of the 2 in this film also, or the 3, throwing in the bending techniques, but I really did like the brief moments, and I have to say brief, of the hand-to-hand combat. It was choreographed quite well, and I do give it 2 thumbs up. The costumes were on point for the most part, not with every tribe, but especially coming from the Fire Nation and the Water Nation. I'll talk about the Airbenders a little bit later on in this series review, and I'm not saying that their costumes were just garbage. But there was one particular character where I was like, okay, like, where did you get your material from? You clearly didn't get all the attention and justice that everybody else did in this series, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But for the most part, the costumes were on point. They did pop, and I liked it. I was saying, I don't cosplay, but I do aspire to do that one day. And, you know, you can cosplay and people be professional with their stuff. You got to just show up and show out. I was like, I may want to cosplay as, you know, somebody from the last Airbender, Avatar, you know, by the way people are looking in this series right here. So that's just how good it is. And it is better than cosplay. This is professional costumes and makeup. But I'm just saying this inspired me to dress up as one of these characters because it was just that good in my opinion. Now, when it comes to the main titular character of Aang, I did like him for the most part as well. And I liked his character because he's a young, innocent boy or young teenager, but I really did like how honest he was and how scared, and he wasn't afraid to tell his mind, just like, wait a minute, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't want to take on this responsibility. This is ridiculous. I want to go and play and do this and that, and you're asking me to save the freaking world? His reaction to all of that was very, very realistic. And I also liked the way he was asking the important questions. Of course, we know that the Fire Nation are the bad guys. They are the antagonists. But again, he was asking the questions that anyone should to de-escalate the situation. Like, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to take over the world? Why can't we just live in peace? Like, dude, I don't get it. Everybody else wants to chill and have a good time. You want to come in and just shoot up the club for no reason because you're not getting any play or whatever. And then you are like, I don't get it. Can you please explain yourself? No, of course, I was ad-libbing a little bit here and there, but that's the gist of it. And I like that coming from character Aang. So great job there too. And again, he was so humble. He did not, everybody is putting all this responsibility on him, all of this weight, but he was not afraid to ask for help and just simply say, I don't know what I'm doing in this situation, without seeming like he had low self-esteem. Of course, his confidence wasn't there. He's a child and they're asking him to save the world. So I completely understand that. Nobody's going to be like, dun, 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 unless they're Superman or something like that. And this is definitely not the case. I mean, he's still learning and he's been forced into this situation. So I just loved how honest and genuine he was as well. Now, when it comes to the three main leads in this series, Aang, Katara, and Sokka, I really did like their relationship. And with me not knowing anything about the original show, I think that diehard fans will be able to appreciate at least a little something coming from them, especially Sokka. He was the funny one, coming with all the comedic lines, being sarcastic, a bit dry humor here and there. And I thought it was very, very appropriate when he's talking to his sister Katara. Like, okay, hey, let's just use some logic here. Let's use some deductive reasoning. Why do you want to take this little boy with you out of a sudden? This doesn't make any sense. I did get a number of laughs from him throughout this series. Now, I can also talk about some other stuff that I will later, but for the most part, I did like their relationship. It felt genuine and not forced either, and it was just a good adaptation just from my own imagination of what the original show was. So I like that too. But I want to also talk about the effects as well. Now, they were pretty great, especially coming from the Fire Nation. The water looked real. Of course, it's not hard to make air bending that convincing, but also the earth bending was pretty dope too. It wasn't perfect all the time. I wasn't just saying like, ugh, but it was a few times I was like, okay, they could have polished the CGI a bit better there. I would say the only thing I did not like about the air bending is kind of in the first few episodes where Aang or some of the other characters were flying. Like later on in the series, he had some type of kite wing, I don't know what you call it, but he was flying around. That looked cool, but the introduction to Aang flying around, I really just wasn't really feeling that right there. They could have did a better job. But for the most part, the effects did look great. And again, like I said, especially from the Fire Nation did a hell of a lot in this show, and I'm gonna talk about that next. But the water, the earth bending, the fire bending, and the air bending, for the most part, I really did like it. So they did a great job with all the visual effects. Now, to answer the question that I posed at the very beginning of this review, guys, by far, the Fire Nation was my favorite. And it's interesting because this is supposed to be about Aang, in my opinion. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, and Katara and Sokka. But in my opinion, the Fire Nation had the biggest character arc, especially coming from Prince Zuko. He was one of my favorite characters in this whole show. I think I like him more than I like Aang, to be honest with you. I've never heard of this guy before by the name of Dallas Liu. But man, now I'm gonna be honest with you, I really wasn't feeling him in his first introduction in episodes 1 or 2. Let me look down and see what he's done in this filmography. Oh, he was in Shang-Chi, Legend of the Ten Rings. I did not know that, okay? If y'all are a fan of this guy, let me know. He was in Mortal Kombat Legacy too. But I'm being honest with you, man. Prince Zuko, he was my second favorite character in this whole show. I'll tell you who my third and first was, and they had to do with the Fire Nation. I like the Fire Nation more than Aang, and I'm just keeping it real, being honest with you. But Prince Zuko right here, he had the largest character arc, and he's the bad guy. He's the antagonist. And I just really liked everything. I mean, again, in episodes 1 and 2, it was a bit jarring with the acting and all that. But when we got to episode 3 and then beyond, I felt sorry for him. And I liked his character. What I especially liked is we're, of course, seeing him in present day. And he has a number of things that has happened to him, his battle wounds, his battle scars. But through each episode throughout the series, as it progresses, they're always jumping back in time, showing different periods in his life of where he was, his relationship with his sister, his uncle, and his father. And those events are showing what led him and why he is so hard in present day in this time. And I ate it all up. I was really able to sympathize with the character, not empathize, because I'm not out in the world fighting wars and trying to capture an avatar. But I was like, okay, damn, I kind of see why you feel the way you feel. Your father has molded you this way, and I don't blame you. Even though you're a bad guy, I still kind of want you to win and make it in some way, shape, or form or capacity. He was my not my favorite, my second favorite character by far. So Dallas Liu, if you're watching this, and y'all can send him the video if you want to. No, you don't got to do all that. You did a great job. I really did like your arc. You know, you was layered, and I had a good time watching throughout this series. My second favorite, or this is coming in at number 3, by the name of Paul Soon Hyung Lung. And this gentleman was my third favorite character. He was just coming after Prince Zuko. I really did like him a lot. His name is Uncle Iroh. And the way that he was doing his best, trying to be a mentor to young Prince Zuko, was brilliant. I loved it. Some of my favorite characters in this whole show. This man was smart. He had wisdom. He had patience. He had all of that. Just an all-around great character. And just super nice too. And he always just wasn't quick to fight, but when it came down to it, he would pull out those hands of fire and blast your ass. And I really did like that. He was very resourceful too. But guys, the man that takes the cake, the person in this show that was my favorite character of them all, was Fire Lord Ozai, played by Daniel Dae Kim. My goodness gracious, guys, he was a boss. He was fierce. He was tough. He was rough. And I loved everything about him. And what is a darn shame is I just wish that he was in the show a little bit more. There was brief glimpses of him at the very, very beginning. And then there was more of him in the last few episodes, 6, 7, and 8. And I wanted to see him as much as possible. I'm not saying that this was the best villain ever in television or movie history. No. That would be exaggeration. That would be hyperbole. But in this show, I just thought he was the ultimate badass. He could fight, he could bend, he could act. He just looked the part out of everybody. I was not necessarily afraid of him, but he's the last person that I would want to fight. And he was very, very hard on his son, Prince Zuko. And I was also seeing people like giving him a hard time in the show, like, oh, you're too hard on your son and all of this. And I don't know why I turn my voice like this, like Mickey Mouse. But I didn't think he was that tough. Except for one part, I was like, okay, that's like damn near child abuse. Okay, you don't need to be doing that. I understand the lesson that you're trying to teach your child, but this is a bit much right here. But nobody's perfect, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying child abuse, but nobody's perfect. But no, I really did like him. I cannot wait to see more of him in the rest of the seasons. I don't think it's a spoiler for me to say, okay, the man didn't die at the end of the series. That would be boring as hell if that happened. Like, what the hell? This is Lord Ozai. But yeah, he was badass, man. I liked him, and he was respected and feared. All of that. So just shout out to him, hands down, best character in the show. I loved everything about him. And what I also liked about this is each tribe, each nation had their own philosophy of living and dying and war and culture and all that. Of course, they're different nations, earth, water, air, and fire. But I liked how they divided and split everything up as far as that's concerned too. But just kind of to sum up the good parts of this show, things that I did like, episode 1 started out very, very strong. And then there was a slight dip. But episodes 1 through 4, I thought it was good. It was pretty good. I did enjoy myself. I was entertained. I was not blown away. And by the end of each episode, I was like, okay, I'm ready to see more. But there were a few things here and there that grinded my gears that I'm going to talk about in a second. Episodes, again, 1 through 4 were good to great. I did like them. Episode 5, I did not like at all. When they go to the spirit world, it was weird. It was creepy. I don't want to say I did not know what was going on, but I just liked it the least. I'm just being honest with you. Episodes 6, 7, and 8, in my opinion, are easily the best out of the whole series. It's always great to start out weak and end strong than to start out strong and end weak. But they really did knock it out the park with episodes 6, 7, and 8. Now, I liked them all dang near about the same, but I want to say episode 6 really kicked it up a notch from episode 5. Because like I said, I did not like episode 5 because episode 6 is a direct continuation to episode 5. And not every episode is like that. Some, it kind of jumps forward in time a bit. But episode 6 was serious. And that's where we started to get a lot Fire Lord Ozai, and it was just my favorite. That's when we was getting a lot of hand to hand, and it was good. But episode 6, 7, and 8 was fire, no pun intended. I really did like that. But guys, those are the things that I really did like about the series. Now let me turn to some things that I really didn't care for or that could have been much better. Number 1 is there were too many inconsistencies with the acting coming from a number of characters. Now, I said in my good part, Prince Zuko. First 2 episodes, I really didn't like him. It was hard to adapt to his acting, but I ended up loving him later on in the season. But when it comes to Aang, played by Gordon Cormier, I don't want to say that his acting was garbage, trash, horrible, because it wasn't. It wasn't ridiculous. I mean, I don't want to exaggerate or just do too much here. But man, it could have been better throughout the whole series. Towards the end, I was just used to it, but that did kind of stand out to me at the very beginning of the series. Like, okay, for a character like this in a show like this, you need to get the best talent possible. And I'm sorry, Gordon, if you're watching this. Again, the acting wasn't horrible. It just could have been better, in my opinion. And that's also the same with Katara as well. Now, in episode 7 or 8, she did have an emotional moment, and that was good. I was like, dang, girl, why wasn't you acting this good throughout the whole series? Why are you saving it for the end? But it was some cringe moments with her acting as well. And I was just kind of bothered me. And these are the main characters right here that are in the show majority of the time. And the acting is just not that great, or it could be better. And that's a misfire right there. They just could have did better. As far as Sok is concerned, it was cool. And, other few characters here and there, the acting kind of went up and down, but there was just too many inconsistencies with the acting. Sometimes it was fine and good. Sometimes I was like, okay, they should have got somebody else to do this. I'm just being honest with you. There's also some inconsistencies with the fighting and the bending techniques. For the majority of the time, it's good. Majority of the time, I want to say 75 to 80% of the time is good. But there was a couple of times, a handful of times, I was like, well, okay, why didn't you just punch the character here? Why didn't you attack here? Why are y'all just getting blasted away and not attacking back? What's going on? Y'all was doing it earlier. Why are you not doing it now? And that happened a few times, yes, in all 8 episodes. I'm just being honest with you, but I did notice it. It was glaring. Now, there's also a character by the name of Boomy who pops up somewhere in the middle of the series. He was annoying. He was annoying. Now, he had a great conclusion. I'm not saying whether he lived or dies. I'm just saying he had a nice conclusion. But he was an annoying character. And I was just like, what are we doing? Okay, can we act a little bit more serious now? Boomy was not one of my favorite characters in the show. Also, inconsistencies with the costumes. Majority of the costumes was nice. But there was one mentor by the name of Gayatso. I think that was the leader or mentor of Aang. I don't know, sometimes his costume just kind of looked like it was coming from Walmart or something. Or I made it myself. It just didn't stand out or pop like everybody else. And I know it may seem like I'm nitpicking here, but these are just some of the things that I noticed. I'm like, his costume is not as great as everybody else's. It's still nice, but why is this person's costume so badass and everybody else's isn't? Something else that is really glaring to me was the Airbender tribe, the arrow that was on their forehead. The makeup department could have stepped it up there. I did like it when it was glowing and starting to glow because it looked like it was tattooed on. And the only thing that Avatar: The Last Airbender that M. Night Shyamalan did better in this series, no, better in his movie than in this series, was the arrow thing. The makeup behind that, I just wasn't feeling it. I noticed that the first episode, and that just was glaring throughout the whole series. So I just really wasn't feeling that either. I already talked about episode 5. I wasn't feeling episode 5. So, you know, if you guys like episode 5, let me know in the comments. And the overall development of Katara felt a bit rushed. I wanted to see more of her training and developing her skills. And I kind of felt like they ran through that right there. I also will say I wanted more training overall. I mean, we can get that in later seasons and future seasons, but I wanted a little bit more. Well, actually, I'll just say that for Katara because the way that the story panned out, I guess it makes sense with the way things ended. Because now that I think I wanted to see it, but now that I think about it, it just wouldn't make sense when it comes to the story, other than Katara's character. I don't want to spoil anything. You'll just have to watch the series to kind of know what I'm talking about, fill in the blanks. But yeah, Katara kind of did feel rushed through. And I also just wanted more of the good. Everything that I talked about in my good section, I just wanted more of it. Like, even though the hand-to-hand choreography was great, it should have been more. Even though the bending was great, it should have been more, in my opinion. That's just me. And also, with this being 8 episodes, it could have possibly been 10. I'm so glad that this is not like 5, like the Netflix adaptation Yu Yu Hakusho. That was only 5 episodes. That was extremely disappointing. I like the show overall, but that was disappointing. But this is 8, that's fine. But they probably could have stretched it out to 10 or 9 or something like that. That would have been nice. But, you know, I will say this. By the end of the season, guys, I was ready to watch more. I was saying I cannot wait to see what happens next with all of these characters, with all of these nations. You know, I had a good time. I really did enjoy myself, especially with the way things ended. Episodes 6, 7, and 8 were really damn good. They just were. And I really want to go back and watch the original show now and compare it to this live action adaptation on Netflix and just have fun with it in the comment section online and all the forums and stuff like that. I can actually say that I'm a fan of this franchise now because of this Netflix series. It wasn't perfect, but it was good. I can say at the very least that it did meet my expectations for the most part. And, you know, that's all I can ask for, kind of. I am also just thinking about, man, how great or good would it have been if the original showrunners would have stayed on board? You know, it probably could have been even better. But guys, I will go ahead and give my rating for this at the very end. But for now, guys, that is just my opinion. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy my review for this, please go ahead and give me the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and help me reach my next milestone of 50,000 subscribers. I may make it doing this review right here. I'm thinking I'm like at 49,000.4 or something like that. So I got like 500 or 600 more subscribers to go to get to 50,000. And only you can help me do that by hitting the thumbs up button, the subscribe button, leaving a comment, and sharing the video. But guys, if I had to rate Avatar: The Last Airbender out of a 1 out of 10 on Netflix, I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10. Yes, a solid 8 out of 10. But guys, again, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget that my name is Brandon Keith Avery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.